was only a transition to a different sphere of consciousness. Carol Ann is not like those she's with. She is a living presence in their spiritual earthbound plane.
Hello and welcome to episode 15 of the Talking to the Dead podcast. So as usual, a lot has happened in the last week, and some of you may have heard a very short appeal podcast that I made prior to episode 14, where I asked people to communicate back to me because it can get a little lonely here. And it would be really nice to feel that people, and I know there are thousands of you out there listening to this because I can see my analytics, so thousands of people listen to this podcast every week. So it would be really nice for them to either say they like it or don't like it, but also maybe ask me some questions or help that they need in their, I suppose, spiritual endeavors. And almost immediately I got a very long and very lovely email from a lady who calls herself Esther. She told me that's not her real name, which is absolutely fine. But she does talk about her dead husband. And his name is real. His name is Stefan. And she's very kindly allowed me to share a lot of what's going on. And for that reason and her generosity, I thought I would really do my best to see what I could do to help her get in contact with Stefan. It obviously was my wish that something would happen before today, because as you know, quite often it happens to me at night, and at other times I'm getting impressions and probably messages through my spirit guide. I also felt very, very strongly after reading this email that this is something I could do, and I did want to help Esther get in touch with Stefan. And things did obviously start happening. So I will quickly tell you the story. I had the first email from her, and to paraphrase the email, because it is quite a lengthy email, she was very, very pleased to listen to my podcasts. She says that English is not her first language, and later on I did discover that she actually comes from Spain. But she writes extremely well, and she lost her husband, who was only 45 a month ago, and he apparently had a horrible illness. I know she wrote that. It was very aggressive, and it took him away very quickly and too quickly. They also have a daughter who's just turned 7 called Sarah. I think there's an awful lot of writing about people in her life who've been involved in psychic stuff and talking about the idea of the afterlife. She was not terribly sure what to think about it. Definitely Stefan didn't wish to die, and apparently he fought extremely hard up until his last breath, and he loved his daughter so much. He enjoyed being a father so much. He didn't want to leave them. I read all of that, and it was terribly emotional to imagine what Esther's been going through, and the daughter as well. But he did pass finally, and she was looking for signs, anything that perhaps would give an indication that he was still there, somehow taking care of them, or wanted to give any signal. There are a lot of things that have happened between this couple, such as special numbers, things that appear in front of her, and she feels those are messages, and maybe they're a way of communicating, but she's not terribly sure what all of that means. Neither am I, so that's one of the things I most definitely wanted to talk to Titan about. She has dreamt about him a few times, and obviously she has a few meaningful dreams of things that have happened, but nothing really kind of related to what's going on at the moment. She's obviously been going through a tremendous grieving period regarding this terrible illness that he was suffering as well, and she's still wanting to know what sort of messages there could be going on with some of the coincidences and the signs that she feels are happening all around her. So in brief, she would just be delighted if I could perhaps make contact with Stefan today, and I've promised that I'll try. But in spite of that, things started happening last week, and I ended up receiving, very strangely, a particular song that came into my head, and it just wouldn't go away, this classic earworm. And it came from a band called Genesis, which I'm sure you've all heard of, and it came from their album And Then There Were Three, and it was called Snowbound. Now, I know this song very well, and everyone of my generation who likes Genesis know that song very well, but and it was probably no real coincidence that I was thinking of it either, because it had been snowing here in Germany. But it was just very strange to me how this song kept on wanting to rear its head, and whether I was on my bicycle or sitting at work or sleeping or whatever, this song kept on coming into my head. I then had the very strong impression that this was actually Stefan trying to make contact with me in some way, as if to say, I'm here, can we talk? I wasn't terribly sure, and I probably should stop doubting myself, but as I've told you so many times, I have this imposter syndrome, which I think you get particularly when you're alone and you've got nobody sitting opposite you telling you, hey, that's very interesting. So I decided that I would write to Esther again and say, look, I don't know if this means anything to you, but this song has been going around and round in my head. And if you should study the lyrics and see if it means anything to you. In my email to her, I mentioned, that I was delighted the podcast meant something to her, and I definitely think that coincidences are not coincidences at all. I believe that they are all part of a form of communication. I mentioned to her this song. I said in my mail to her that it may mean nothing, or maybe it means a huge amount, but I was riding my bike in the dark to work and I couldn't get this song out of my head, and I've been hearing it over and over again. Was he a fan of Genesis? What was he trying to say? And there's this lovely line I mentioned that's in the song about people who somehow in a snow year are filled with the love of those who lie so deep. It sounds very much like a person who is dead making contact. So I wanted to know what all that meant. She wrote back to me pretty shortly afterwards, and she just said, I just have goosebumps right now. He was, or better, we were fans of Genesis, and mostly we were super big fans of Peter Gabriel and Phil Collins, who are both members of Genesis. Both Peter Gabriel and Phil Collins were very special in our lives, and that song you sent me was released on the year he was born, in 1978. And I'll tell you that your email arrived in a place, number, not read emails, in the mail inbox, which is related to our special number. You really got me emotional, and I really don't know what to say, but thank you very much. Well, I was very pleased to receive that. It's always quite nice to get some positive reinforcement. And I wrote back and said, I'm glad I know where this earworm is coming from. And I said, it certainly looks like Stefan's entity is able to communicate, and he's probably trying to prove that he can. I said that if you listen to the song, it is about a snowman and children playing with the snowman, not really realizing how he probably was real under that casing of snow. And it's a very strange song where there's a feeling of death, but also life, as the body is merely a casing, in this case of snow, and it eventually melts, and when we die. I love the imagery in that song, and I could see how this could mean something. And I communicated that back to Esther, and she wrote back to me. She said, Stefan loved the snow to his heart. It was very meaningful for him, and he enjoyed it a lot. It would make sense for him to use the snow as a metaphor, and she felt quite overwhelmed by that. And so I obviously was very conscious of the fact that I didn't want to overwhelm her, but she did reply to me that she would love me to find out what I can find out about things. In my last email with her, I mentioned also that I had been thinking of another song, also actually on that same album, And it was strange to me how it was also, in some way, very emotional, and it was communicating to me, and I just couldn't get it out of my head. It's called Undertow. Again, you guys can listen to it, and it seems to be also somewhat connected to life and death. But also it occurred to me, of course, if there's special numbers around, it's quite interesting that it comes from an album called And Then There Were Three. And I thought it would be quite interesting to find out what these numbers are all about. And in the end, Esther said that she'd be thrilled to find out what's going to happen in this podcast. So she's very happy that I know a little bit about what goes on. I don't want to know too much because I'm always very nervous that the mind can sort of play tricks on you and you might start making up stuff, which I, of course, definitely don't want to do. But she wanted me to know that music was everything for both Stefan and her in their lives. And she said, when I say everything, I mean in bold, everything. And I'm not saying it figuratively, I say it literally. Thank you so much for doing this. Yep, so here we are. Something has been going on. Music has been very powerful. It's obviously very powerful to Stefan and also to Esther. And plus all the messages of snow, Genesis, communication, and I want to find out a little bit more about what it means. So here we are again, due to the magic of podcasts. I can take a few moments now and see if I can get hold of Titan and if she'll come through and talk to me. I have a slightly different format because I have some distinct questions that I want to ask her that are related not only to what Esther has asked, or the things that it is brought up that I want to ask about Stefan, but also because I received another email during the week from another lady who had lost her son. Tragically, he seems to have been a very young boy as well. But in this particular case, there are, in our correspondence, a couple of issues came up that I want to also discuss with Titan. I don't wish to discuss the specifics of what happened to the son and what's going on in this lady's life, primarily because at the moment I believe that she's a little uncomfortable about the whole idea of spiritual communication, and the email was from a friend. But it did raise some interesting questions, and I want to ask those as well. First of all, before we move on and see if we can make contact with Stefan, I want to ask those questions of Titan to see if she can give me some enlightenment. So I will be back in a minute. Okay, back again. And I am completely aware now that Titan is with me. I always get a very strong feeling that she's there. And I think I'll just go straight into it. So my questions for you, Titan, are that how do spirits communicate with me, given that there is no language? And I think, as you've explained before, in quite a lot of detail, it's my interpretation. She says that, yes, it's something we've covered before, but she's very happy to cover it again, due to the fact that the two emails that I've received relate to communication and the complexities of communication between those who are not living as humans anymore and those that are living in a spiritual realm. She wants immediately to say that music is a form of communication or a translation tool. She wants to quickly mention, as she's mentioned before, famous composers such as Mozart, who seem to be a channel for music rather than composers in their own right. She feels that it's more than that, though. It's more than the fact that they can channel music from some creative source that is in another dimension. It's also the way that they manage to convey through the music messages that are not so much hidden in the music, but they are affecting us on different in different senses, in different ways, through emotions. But she says it's not just music that does this. And it's something, she's reminding me of a conversation I had with my friend Isabel the other night, where we were talking about how communication with in the Bible with Jesus was described as, I think, almost like his words became flesh in the birth of Jesus. In that story, the Word of God became flesh, and it's a lovely idea. And Titan is mentioning to me that now again because she wants to mention how words become flesh. We create reality through that, but also the information that we can receive is something that becomes real to us. And if this information is passed through the emotion of music, that will become flesh in terms of being written down as music. But the messages within that music are still there. And she's saying that many people will have memories evoked by listening to music. Many people will listen to some concerto or whatever by Mozart and will feel something almost spiritual, will feel an instant communication or line of communication, she says, has been opened up to spiritual zones. Now she mentions it's not just music. This happens through literature, through art, through photography, and all of this can communicate what is being said. Okay, so how come, Titan, how does it work that you communicate to me, but perhaps other people don't receive communications like that? She's saying it's perfectly simple. She says that I'm obviously in a very receptive state. I've been in a state of being able to receive communications for many, many years, even though I haven't bothered. And it's something that is never left to me since the minute I was born. And I've just been able to carry over the way things happen when we're not human. And I've never forgotten that. And I've been able to use that in my human form when most people generally do not or don't remember how. She says that's how it works for me. She finds it very easy to talk to me. I find it very easy to understand her too. But it's not always the case. She can talk directly to me, and my consciousness is translating it into my language almost instantaneously, and it's really quite remarkable, and it is a lovely feeling. But she says it doesn't always happen that way, particularly with certain entities that have maybe died before their time, or have just recently died and haven't quite reabsorbed into their stem consciousness where they came from. They may not yet be remembered how to communicate to people who are human. And she said she's mentioned that before, that it does take a lot of work and a lot of effort, particularly if you haven't done it before, to be able to communicate to a spirit, but also for a spirit or the spirit world or whatever you want to call it, to communicate with us. And it's not an automatic process in some cases. And sometimes the communication, she says, happens in other ways. And she's now pointing out that in the case of Stefan, it is most definitely the case that he's in a particular state at the moment where his best form of communication is through music. And it's something that apparently he's been very involved in all his life. Possibly he's a musician and he enjoys communicating through music. But she says it's the same for I was going to say a magician, but I think that was me badly translating it. I think mathematician. Mathematics is a language which is very universal. It's something that is in some way very pure and it gets to the heart of things. And you can communicate very complex ideas and feelings through mathematics. And she says that mathematics is a way that you could probably communicate well with people, but music is ideal. And obviously the best is being able to talk through me like this, but it's not possible for everyone to do that. It can also happen that people have a meaning in terms of geometry. and buildings and structures. She's reminding me that the Freemasons are very much into geometry, and they believe the sacred geometry of creation. So there are various ways. Now, she is saying that most definitely in this particular case, she feels that Stefan has been trying to communicate, or at least, yes, make himself known to me through music that I love, more than music he loves, she's saying, because it's trying to get hold of my attention, and my attention will be gained by something he's aware of, but he knows will mean something to me, because ultimately she's saying that I will receive a message and I interpret it. But if the same message is given to the person next door, she says, they may interpret it slightly differently. She's saying the gist of what's being said will be pretty much the same, but the way it's said is very different. It's just like if you tell a story to one person and they tell it to another 10 people, by the time it gets to the 10th person, there is a general round of truth in that. But things are slightly different in terms of the facts, maybe, or the words that were used. Well, that was good, because that was my first question, Titan. I was just very interested if I could see this similarity between all the things you said before and what is happening at the moment with this particular Genesis song. And I think you've kind of answered my question there. So definitely Stefan is trying to reach me through the song. She's saying to me, look, we haven't finished with Stefan, but give me the next question. Okay. Well, my next question relates, I think, to the second email I received. And I was quite interested because the lady who wrote to me said that her friend, who's the mother of the child who's dead, didn't really wish to talk to me or for me to mention the names or anything else. Because she didn't really feel, in a way, it was in line with her own personal Christian spiritual beliefs. So my question to you, Titan, is there something fundamentally unchristian or wrong about communicating with spirits, or communicating with you for that matter? Titan says, let's talk about Christianity, let's talk about religions. She says, we have touched upon this before. But Christianity, she says, like many religions, is 100% real, and to the people who believe in it, it can be 100% or less, going down to people who do doubt their faith. But ultimately, the reality of Christianity for thousands of years to some people has been so strong that it's created already so many physical things in this world and things in other dimensions that reinforce and represent what Christianity means to people. And it becomes something that you can therefore reach out and touch and join and be part of, where all the tenets of the religion, she says, have been manifested into reality, and they exist completely and utterly truthfully. But the interesting thing she's saying is that this somehow manages to cohabit with all the other religions, such as Buddhism, Judaism, Islam, whatever you like, she says. They have all done exactly the same. And they've all been they've all come from original ideas, and they've all been developed through people's thinking, and the reality has been manifested from the thought. She's wanting me to say that in sort of semi-answer to what the lady is asking me about a conflict or a moral dilemma between Christianity and talking to dead people or spirits. She says, look, maybe, obviously, in certain areas, certain Christian faiths, it might be considered wrong, maybe in terms of perhaps Catholics or whatever it might be. However, it's very ironic, of course, because the fundamentals of the Christian religion, she says, is based around ghosts, it's based around spirits, it's based around heaven and life after death. So really, in fact, there should be no conflict at all. But she can certainly understand that some great thinkers and people have written this down and given people the impression that it's wrong. And that has, to many people, been confirmed, therefore, as a fact. And they are naturally very wary of going against the tenets of their religion. But she says it's not true. There's no conflict between talking to people who are not here as much as talking to people who are here. She said the irony again, and she said this before, is that we are always talking to people. It's a back and forwards communication that's continuously going on between us living here and the people that we know or have been or will be, and all the family of consciousnesses that we come from and that we will go to again. And that consciousness communication is happening all the time. All I'm doing, she says, is making it sound real to people and bringing it out, if you like, into the open and being able to convey it in a way that is beyond dreams or beyond impressions. And for that sake, there's nothing wrong. But she says, but what is wrong, and we've covered this before, are people who give the impression that they're talking to spirits and are either lying about it because they're trying to make money from it, or they're doing it because they have some probably twisted idea that they're helping people and they're not. She says that is perhaps the worry, and that may have been the concern for Christians in the past that made it a rule, perhaps, amongst certain Christian denominations that they shouldn't be talking to the dead. But she said, as long as you're being careful and you've got no sense that people are, deliberately doing it in order to manipulate people or to make money or to scare people, there should be no problem with it at all. After all, again, she says, in the Christian faith, prayer is very important, and prayer is essentially thoughts, and thoughts that are creating a reality for the person who's praying or for the people that the prayeree wishes to help. And this is all on a spiritual level, so again, it doesn't seem to be immediately any great contradiction there. Well, that's good to know. And there's just one further thing I want to talk to you about, and I'm going to talk to you about this already, and that does relate to this lady. But actually it does also relate somehow to Esther, and because there are children involved. And to what extent, I'd like to ask, do children receive psychic information? Could Esther's daughter also be in touch with her late father? Or could the other lady who's written to me, could it be that the son of the other lady who's died, could it be that he could try to contact me? Or is there some sort of age limit or something? Is it appropriate to try to contact children? How does it work? Okay, Titan has indicated to me that it's a complicated one, because in the case of the daughter who is alive, she's in the same situation as anyone. She may be able to feel things. Maybe she doesn't really know how to interpret it because she's terribly young. But it's, of course, perfectly possible for children to remember how to communicate, because, of course, it wasn't that long ago that they were communicating that way before they were born. But something almost happens immediately. She says that you're born, in most cases, you get so carried away with the way of life and your senses that you forget this other sense that is just innate in you. In terms of the boy who seems to have died for this other lady, she's saying to me, she says it really depends, and she doesn't want to either elaborate much on this because we haven't really got permission to discuss this in any great detail. But she feels in this particular case that the son is in a particular place at the moment because something has obviously happened to him that was premature, and in his particular case, unwelcomed and unexpected. Okay, and she says that there are also other people involved here. By talking about this particular case, inevitably I'm not going to be talking about just his passing, but other people's passing as well. Okay. And at the moment, this child is unable to talk in a way that I could communicate, because he's going through a process where he is trying to assimilate himself, and in a way, she's saying that the mother is in such grief, and by being in grief, she says this can always keep the person who's died from being able to pull away. The grief that we create is a very strong power. It's a very strong thought. She says this is the same with Esther. Esther is under tremendous grief, as is the daughter, and as long as they hold on to this grief and do not resolve it, it keeps the person who has passed on extremely close to them, maybe not able to communicate properly to them, but they will feel it very hard to be able to move forward, to move out of this earthly communication. And Titan is saying, I think we've discussed this before, some people talk about ghosts, some people talk about spirits that are very close to us in terms of our earthly dimension, and other spirits that have moved way beyond our reach, and we cannot make any contact with them anymore, at least not until we pass ourselves, or without huge amounts of emotional and mental effort. She wants me to know that Stefan is very close, and the boy in question here is also very close as well. She says we won't talk about the boy anymore for now. We'll talk more about Stefan, because maybe it's possible that Stefan could actually say a few things and maybe talk to us a little bit about his situation now. Okay, well, I think that would be really nice. So I hope, therefore, to the lady who wrote to me, you can understand where we are, and I'd be very happy to try to do something more about that on another day. But for now, let's go back to Esther and see what we can find out about Stefan and what's going on there. Okay, I have a very strong feeling now that Titan has managed to find that the consciousness that represents Stefan, and I have to be very careful here, because this is very real to Esther and her family, and obviously I don't want to say anything wrong. It's always been my fear that you could say something that could upset people, so I'm not a highly trained medium. I only say it as it is, so I apologize up front if anything I say may be too direct. But I'll tell you what I'm feeling. I'm feeling very strongly about blood, and I think this came through in the song as well, because in the song Snowbound, you hear this story about how the children tear down the snowman when he starts melting, and they tear. It's really rather horrible in a way. They tear at his flesh, and the children obviously don't know it's flesh. They think it's snow, but they can't hear the snowman's cries. They can't see the blood. It's a tragic sort of children's story. Titan is saying to me that Stefan is talking about that. He's talking about blood. And there's something also talking about a disease of blood, and there's something about the throat as well. And I got a very strong sense of that. But yeah, that is just a strong thought that comes through. But most definitely, there is something that Stefan is trying to communicate, but he's having problems communicating with Titan, because he's in this situation where it's all come so quickly to him. He's so close to Esther still. He wants to communicate, but it's really quite difficult because he's still going through a sort of a period of adjustment. They're saying adjustment is this thing. But he has something he wants to try to convey. I'm just getting the numbers again. He's talking about numbers, and for some reason, I don't know why, but the number 5 is coming through quite strongly to me. But also, there's something very strange that's popping in here. I'm very convinced that he is, as he's trying to communicate to me through music, I think there's something about musical notation here and being able to write music. And I think the number 5 is very important to him. I can't really tell you more about that. In terms of suffering, he's telling me that through Titan, because he's not really talking to me, I don't know whether he's talking to me or if Titan's talking to me, but I'm just getting these strong impressions that he wants me to say to Esther that there's no reason to worry about him in pain or in trouble or anything else. He kind of understands what's going on. It's early days yet. He is communicating with you, and he's communicating with your daughter. He's constantly communicating, and he's feeling all the emotions that you're feeling. He most definitely wants you to, he's saying, I know this maybe sounds a bit harsh, but he wants you to move on. He really does want you to move on. He says that you don't have to forget him. He'll never forget you. His daughter, his life, everything, all the music that was everything to both of you. He says he's so looking forward. It's nice. He's so looking forward to the opportunities that he now has to discover more music and to discover music that has never been heard, and he's in the right place for that. And he's telling me actually, he's really looking forward to that. And he says, interestingly enough, that when he's ready, he's going to convey that music to you, Esther. He's going to be able to give that music. I don't know if you're a musician, Esther. You haven't told me. But he's going to try, so I hope you are, because if he's going to get music, it's going to come in a way that you are going to probably have to transcribe it somehow or maybe receive it. He doesn't seem to be terribly bothered that he can do that. He seems to be quite assured of that. I'm just questioning myself whether it's something you're going to be ready for, but he seems to think you are, so let's hope for that. And he says, please, he's saying, tell Esther that it's a very positive message he's giving, that, in the respect that he hasn't gone. He's always going to be there, and he's going to be able to always communicate, and he'll try his best to make your grieving less than it is. But he again is saying, it's a question of you moving on, and it's a question of him moving on, so he can actually separate himself more, so he can get more involved in terms of the spiritual dimensions that he now finds himself in. So yes, I mean, he's wanting me to say too. Actually, I think this is Titan coming through now. Titan is saying that it's very important to see human experience, and she said this before, as being almost like a fixed quantity that stops at the point of death. And what I'm actually talking to now is the entity that is Stefan, that is not only Stefan, but all the other entities within his kind of root consciousness. And in many respects, it's very important that you understand that Stefan's life finished at the point that he died. And what he can convey to you is more to do with his future development and his moving on and why he chose to be Stefan in the first place. But he's not there yet. He's in this slightly in-between moment where he can communicate with you, and he can also communicate with his consciousness, his root consciousness. And eventually, though, he will move on. So all I can really say, Esther, is that I'm quite surprised. I was a bit frightened that this would be sad, but it's not sad. There's a tremendous amount of happiness here. Not a happiness that you're grieving at all, but just happiness as to his situation now and the potential and the probabilities that he has ahead of him, all the wonderful things that lie ahead of him, and all the things that will lie ahead of all of you, all of us, when eventually we pass. But pass we must, but pass at the right time and for the right reasons. I think that's enough for this week. So thank you very much, Esther, for writing to me. It's been a fantastic experience. And for the other lady, I hope I can help you a bit. I hope I can give you some comfort about your son at some point. But I really wouldn't want to do that. And I really wouldn't want to ask Titan for help in this regard until you feel ready. Thank you. So, just for the purposes of everybody else, and for you, really, Esther, here is the song, Snowbound. And I obviously will give credit to Genesis in the notes at the bottom. I'm putting this here merely as a critique, because I realize it's copyright material. Actually, now I'm being told a bit, I think, by maybe Stefan or Titan here towards the end. Don't worry, just put it there. And if anybody complains, I think you've got reason enough that it's helping people and it means something. And don't worry about it, just do it.
Sees the pain with surprise as it smothers your cries. You'll never, never know. Hey, there's a snowman. Hey, what a snowman. For the snowman. What a snowman. You see, snow is a good gift filled with a love for all lies so deep. Smiling faces tear your body to the ground, covered red that only we can see.